Ethan Miller never planned to stay long in the border town. He had ridden in only to buy flour, rope, and a few tools for his ranch. The day was hot, the air dusty, and the market was louder than usual, filled with travelers, traders, and townsfolk bargaining over small things. Ethan moved through the narrow street with calm steps, thinking only about finishing his errands before nightfall. But everything changed when he heard a soft, shaky whisper behind a wooden stall. At first, he thought he imagined it. The voice was so faint that it barely reached him through the noise. But then, he heard it again, gentle, tired, and filled with something that felt like quiet hope. He turned toward the sound, and his heart froze for a moment. Behind the stall stood a young Apache woman, her wrists loosely chained to a wooden post. The chains were not heavy, but they were enough to stop her from walking away. Dust covered her skin, and her long black hair hung over her shoulders, tangled from days without care. But it was her eyes that made him pause. They weren't wild or angry. They were calm, deep, and full of quiet sadness, like she had accepted something painful a long time ago. She looked straight at him, as if she had been waiting for someone to look her way. Then, she whispered the words that struck him so deeply. "Please, buy me and make me your wife." Ethan blinked, thinking he had misheard, but she repeated it softly, with the same calm voice, like a person who had run out of choices. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Why would you say something like that?" he asked, careful not to show how troubled he felt. The stall-keeper, a rough-looking man, leaned over the counter and spoke before she could answer. "She's been nothing but trouble," the man said. "We found her wandering outside town. Poor thing had nowhere to go. We tried giving her work, but she runs off. Had to chain her so she doesn't steal food." Ethan felt a tightness in his chest. The woman didn't look dangerous. She didn't even look like someone who could hurt a fly. She looked hungry, tired, and frightened of disappointing anyone around her. Chains, even loose ones, felt wrong on her wrists. He turned back to her. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then whispered, "Nayeli." Her voice was soft, like she wasn't used to people asking for her name. She avoided eye contact, but there was something brave in the way she stood straight, steady, not showing fear even though her situation was difficult. Ethan crouched down so he wasn't towering over her. "Nayeli, why did you ask me that? You don't even know me." She took a slow breath. "I have no one left," she said. "My family. Gone. No home. No food. People here do not want me. I thought, maybe someone like you would be kind." Her voice shook only a little. "If you take me with you, they will let me go." Ethan looked at the stall-keeper again. "Is that true?" he asked. The man shrugged. "Sheriff doesn't want her wandering around. Says she needs someone responsible to take her in. Otherwise, we keep her here. She won't last long on her own." Ethan felt anger rising. Not from the man's words, but from the situation itself. Nayeli was treated like she was less than a person, like she needed someone to claim her just to survive. It felt unfair and cruel. He turned back to her. "You don't have to be anyone's wife just to be safe," he told her softly. "You shouldn't have to beg for that." Nayeli lowered her eyes. "In my tribe, when someone saves you, you offer yourself to their family. It is respect, not fear." She paused. "But no one here looks at me like a person. They look at me like I am in the way." Her words hit him like a hammer. He realized she wasn't trying to force anything. She was trying to survive. He stood up straight. "Where's the sheriff?" he asked. The stall-keeper pointed to a small wooden office across the street. Ethan didn't waste another second. He walked there with strong steps, pushed open the door, and explained the situation, leaving no detail out. The sheriff sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. The town had been struggling with many problems: stray animals, thieves, travelers passing through. They didn't know what to do with Nayeli. No one wanted to care for her. And they didn't have resources to help her. They weren't trying to harm her. They simply lacked a better plan. "If you take her," the sheriff said, "even just as a worker on your ranch, she'll be free from the stall keeper. But someone must take responsibility for her." Ethan walked out with a heavy heart. He saw Nayeli standing still, watching him, not blinking, like she was afraid he might say no and walk away forever. He walked to her slowly. "Nayeli," he said softly, "I'm not buying you, and I'm not taking you as a wife, because you feel forced." He shook his head. "But I can take you with me, not as property, as a person who needs help." She stared at him, confused, as if she had never heard such words before. "I will work," she whispered quickly, as if afraid he would change his mind. "I can clean, cook, wash." He raised his hand gently to stop her. "You don't have to prove anything to me. You deserve basic respect." His voice was firm but warm. "If you come with me, it's because you want a safe place. That is enough. I know in ground. One. Known." Her lips trembled. She nodded slowly, not trusting her voice. Ethan unlocked her chains one by one. The metal made a soft click, and the moment she was free, she held her wrists carefully, touching the skin where the bands had rubbed. She didn't celebrate or cry. She just breathed out, long and deep, like someone finally allowed to rest after months of fear. Ethan took off his coat and placed it around her shoulders to shield her from the sun. She wrapped it tightly around herself, not because she was cold, but because it felt warm and comforting, something she hadn't felt in a long time. They walked to his horse. Nayeli hesitated, looking back at the stall, at the dusty ground she had stood on for so long, at the people who never offered her kindness. She swallowed hard and climbed onto the horse behind Ethan. She held onto him lightly at first, but as the horse began to move, she gripped a little tighter, not out of fear, but because she finally felt safe with someone. The town faded behind them. The open land stretched ahead, wide fields, tall grass, distant hills. Nayeli watched it all with wide eyes, taking in the freedom she had forgotten about. Ethan didn't speak much on the ride. He didn't need to. He could feel the gentle weight of Nayeli, leaning against him, trusting him without saying a word. And as the wind brushed past them, he knew one thing for certain: he could not leave her in that place. Whatever happened next, he would make sure she was treated like a human being, with dignity and warmth. For the first time in months, Nayeli felt something growing inside her quiet hope. Ethan's ranch stood quietly at the edge of a wide grassland, far from the noise and problems of the border town. When they arrived, the sun was dipping behind the hills, painting the sky in soft gold and orange. Nayeli sat straight on the horse, her eyes moving from one corner of the ranch to another. She wasn't used to open spaces anymore. Everything felt too calm, too peaceful, almost unreal after the chaos and fear she carried inside her. Ethan helped her down gently. She stepped onto the dirt, looking around like she was trying to understand whether this place was real or another moment that would vanish. Ethan did not rush her. He let her take her time, watching her reaction silently. "You must be tired," he finally said, keeping his voice soft. "Let's get you something to eat first." Nayeli followed him slowly, unsure of the rules in this new place. She walked with small steps, careful not to touch anything unless he gave permission. At the door, she stopped and looked at him with a soft question in her eyes. Ethan understood immediately. "You can come inside," he said with a gentle smile. "This is your home now, too." You. She stepped in carefully, as if afraid the floor might reject her weight. The house smelled like wood, fresh bread, and old books. Everything looked simple, but clean. Ethan placed a plate of warm food on the table, bread, beans, and roasted vegetables. She stared at the plate for a long moment, not knowing if she should sit. "You can sit," he said kindly. She sat slowly, her hands trembling slightly. When she took the first bite, she paused, as if she needed to make sure it was okay to continue. Ethan pretended not to notice, giving her space to relax. By the time she finished eating, some of the tension in her shoulders had softened. After dinner, Ethan showed her a small room near the back of the house. There was a bed with a warm blanket, a small wooden chair, and a window that opened to the quiet fields. "This room is yours," he told her. "You don't have to sleep outside or on the floor. You can rest here, safely." Nayeli looked at the bed with disbelief. She touched the blanket gently, almost like she feared it would disappear. Her voice was barely audible when she whispered, "Thank you." She stood there for a long time, unable to believe she had a space of her own. Ethan left her to rest, closing the door softly behind him. That night, Nayeli lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She couldn't sleep at first. Her mind kept expecting someone to shout at her, or chains to pull at her wrists. But the house was silent. The air was warm, and for the first time in many months, she fell asleep without fear. Over the next few days, Nayeli slowly learned the rhythms of the ranch. Ethan never told her what to do. Instead, he let her choose how she wanted to help. She swept the floor, fed the chickens, and helped water the garden. Every time she finished a small task, she looked at Ethan carefully, waiting for criticism that never came. Instead, he would simply say, "Thank you, Nayeli," and she would lower her head, trying to hide the small smile that always appeared. One morning, Ethan found her standing outside near the barn, staring at the rising sun with quiet wonder. She seemed calmer than when he first brought her. Her eyes looked brighter, her shoulders less heavy. "You're up early," he said with a friendly tone. She turned to him and nodded. "In my tribe, we wake with the sun," she explained softly. "We greet the day with a thankful heart." That sounds peaceful," Ethan replied. "It was," she whispered, her voice dipping slightly as memories returned. "Before, everything changed." Ethan didn't push her to talk. He waited. After a moment, Nayeli spoke again, her voice steady, but filled with unspoken pain. "After my family disappeared, I wandered for many days. I looked for help, but people were afraid of me, or angry. I did not understand why." Ethan listened closely. Her words were simple, but they carried deep weight. "I tried to work," she continued, "but no one trusted me. I did not speak English well then. People thought I was stealing when I was only trying to survive." Her hands trembled slightly. "The man at the stall. He gave me food at first. But later, when I could not work enough, he chained me so I would not leave." Ethan's jaw tightened. He knew he had to keep his voice calm for her sake. "None of that was your fault." Nayeli looked at him with a mix of surprise and confusion. "People in your world do not speak kindly to me," she said. "You are different. And," he gave a small smile, "kindness is something everyone deserves." Those words touched her more deeply than he realized. From that day on, Nayeli started to trust him a little more. She walked with more confidence, spoke more openly, and even laughed softly when the farm animals did something silly. Ethan found himself watching her quietly, sometimes not because he expected anything from her, but because it made him happy to see her healing. Weeks passed gently. Life on the ranch grew peaceful. One evening, after a long day of fixing fences, Ethan sat on the porch resting. Nayeli joined him quietly, holding a small, woven band in her hands. She sat beside him, close but not too close, still respectful of personal space. "I made this," she said softly. It was a bracelet, made from threads of different colors, woven with care. Ethan took it gently. "It's beautiful," he said. "Thank you." In her tribe, woven bands were meaningful gifts, symbols of trust and respect. Nayeli looked at him with steady eyes. "You gave me freedom," she said. "You gave me safety. I want to give something in return." "You already have," Ethan replied. "Your presence here. It means a lot." Nayeli lowered her gaze, shy but pleased. As weeks turned into months, the bond between them deepened. They talked more, worked side by side, and learned about each other's worlds. Nayeli no longer walked with fear. Her laughter became brighter, her steps lighter. Ethan found that his long, lonely ranch felt full of life again. One morning, after many months, Nayeli approached Ethan with calm determination. She stood in front of him, her hands clasped together. "I want to speak something important," she said. He stopped what he was doing and gave her his full attention. "When I first met you, I asked something foolish," she said. "I asked you to make me your wife because I thought it was the only way to survive." Her voice was steady, not sad, just honest. "I did not understand kindness then." Ethan nodded slowly, not interrupting. "But now, after living here, after feeling safe, after learning your heart," she paused, gathering courage. "Now, I speak from choice, not fear." She looked into his eyes with sincerity. "If your heart wishes, I would like to be your wife. Not because I must, but because I choose you." Ethan felt something warm move through him, a quiet, deep joy. "Nayeli," he said gently, "I want that too. But only because it makes both of us happy." She nodded, a soft smile forming on her lips. When they married months later, it wasn't in a church or big hall. Neighbors gathered, simple decorations were hung, and Nayeli walked forward, wearing a white dress given by a kind friend. Ethan waited at the end of the path, looking at her like she was sunlight itself. There were no chains, no fear, no begging. Only two people who found each other when they needed someone most. Their life together began not with desperation, but with healing, trust, and a gentle love that grew stronger every day.